Every day, we strive to do more and be the best versions of ourselves. It's not an easy task, but success is available for each of us. Welcome to the Swag University podcast, where each week we explore insightful messages, strategies, and tips to help you level up in life. Your host, Dr. Phildra Swagger, creative strategist and mindset coach, will empower you with the tools you need to create the life and business you desire, while providing inspirational insights to the woman who wants to see her destiny manifested daily. So now, let's level up with Dr. Swag.
Hey everyone, this is your girl, Dr. Swag. I hope you are having a wonderful day today. I am here with a great friend of the show, Mr. Ross Harrop. Ross is the full-time C12 Group Area Chair here in Tampa Bay. Now, the C12 is an executive roundtable group for men and women who have a faith in God and believe that their businesses are ministries manifested in God's word and work. And so today we really want to take an opportunity to talk about how we use our gifts and talents to be in alignment with what God has purposed us for, and how to work in a way that honors Him. Now, I don't know if it'll be a straight line straight to that mission, because I've had a chance to sit with Ross for a while and chat, and I tell you, he is a great guy with great stories and a lot of experiences from his days as a leader of the Boy Scouts. His first career, he was an executive with Boy Scouts of America from over 33 years, not only in the area Los Angeles, but he's really traveled the country creating opportunities for boys to develop leadership and growth and build character. And so as he's impacted young men, those stories today lead to the many organizations that he helps to impact through the C12 Executive Roundtable. And even beyond that, he served as an executive pastor. So we have someone who has not only walked the walk in his life, but now he's sharing that with others. And I'm so excited to be able to bring him to Swag University to talk to each one of you about aligning your life with God's purpose. Hi, Ross.
Great to be with you. And I have to tell you that as I prepared to come, and you gave me really carte blanche to talk about any subject that I wanted to that would be of interest to your audience, and I hope it is today. And because I love on your signature, it says, excellence demands discipline. How demanding, right, are you? And that haunted me. In fact, I didn't know whether you were being as sarcastic as I am in that you were challenging me, because today's topic, as we get into it, really challenges our beliefs and how demanding are we to be disciplined in our lives. So it's great to be here. Great to be part of this podcast. I'm just delighted.
It's a pleasure to have you. Well, take a few moments and introduce yourself and your background at C12 a little more than I did to my listeners, because I think they would really benefit from knowing who you are.
We say that our vision is pretty big, to change the world by advancing the gospel in the marketplace. And then the question then becomes, well, how do you do that? We do it through executive roundtables. And so our mission is we equip Christian business owners to build great businesses for a greater purpose. And that greater purpose is to build up the kingdom. And so the people that I serve are individuals who are Christians themselves, but perhaps if they have 100 employees or they have 12 employees, not everyone within those ranks are going to be Christian. So I like to call them kingdom companies. That is Christ-centered, God-honoring, and we come together for one day a month, and I have 4 different groups that I lead, and then I have 3 associate C12 chairs that do the same thing from Lakeland all the way to the coast, and here in that being the Gulf Coast. And so we're working with a group of 12. Phildra, there was this guy named Jesus, right? who thought that the model of 12 was solid. And so we get together as an executive roundtable, men and women, who want to operate their company in a God-honoring way. And so I like to say we build a bridge between the Sunday morning sermon and the Monday morning madness.
Wow.
So that's really what we do. And it's about accountability. It's just a way for us to come together, and we have curriculum each month. One month builds upon the other, and we're just how do we run and operate our companies based on biblical principles? That's really what it is, and it's the greatest management leadership textbook ever written, and it's all there. We just we can start at Proverbs and move
Work
from
your
there.
way through, huh?
Yeah. So
Well, that's interesting because, as you know, at least I think all of my listeners know and believe in that God is a God of decency and order. And I guess in the business world, we could call that our business plan
it is.
if we follow that. Can you give us a few tips of how do you organize a mission, a business mission around biblical principles?
Well, the first and foremost is who owns the company? And we would say in C12 that God owns the company, and you are the steward of that. Now, when folks join the C12 group, they may or may not believe that. They may have to come to an understanding of that over time as we go through our curriculum and as they're sitting shoulder to shoulder with other Christian CEOs or owners, and they're coming to grips with that. Is it in fact something that God owns, or is it what you've created? So just the looking at ministry here's my definition of ministry. So I'm not saying it's the official C12, it's mine, which is meeting the needs of people where they are at using the unlimited resources of God. So in challenging you, Phildra, if I ask you to pray for someone, do you do that?
I do.
And yet, for many, many years of my life, if somebody asked me to pray for them, my answer would be, you can count on me. And then I would go off, and I'd like to think that I followed through on that commitment. But prayer is one of those unlimited resources of God. So what I learned was that I needed to be present with that person right now. When they shared a story and I can ask permission, could I pray for you? Or they might ask me to pray for them, to say, would now be a good time? And the first time I had to do that was in a Walmart line after I had been challenged by an associate on the church staff when I was in Colorado. And all of a sudden my heart's beating. Phildra, it's beating because there's a line behind me, and the clerk has come back and she has tears coming down her cheek, and she said, I'm sorry, but my husband is just shared that he's leaving me, and we have 2 kids.
Oh my.
And right in that moment, I knew what I had to do, and I turned to the people behind me and said, would you mind if I just prayed for Diane? And they looked at me like I was crazy. And I just prayed for her right then. It was 30-second prayer. It was powerful. That was ministry.
That's ministry.
Does that make sense?
Oh, of course. That's ministry.
Yeah.
That's faith in action.
So you're asking me how do we do that within the confines of a company? It begins with caring for our people. It's caring for our community. Outside the door of the building itself, do we care about the people across the street that are struggling and suffering? May have enough food, may not. Do our employees have a way when their car breaks down to be supported, or do they have to quit their job?
Right.
So that's ministry, and making that vertical connection with God and our employees. That's just a simple way for me to look at caring for people. He said, right, love thy neighbor as thyself.
Love thy neighbor.
Well, who are the neighbors? Well, how about beginning with our employees?
I see on the wheel of alignment, one of the factors there is business operation. Can how does an owner or a CEO um, go beyond being present to actually putting in policies that honor that desire to be present in an alignment with God, so that it really does permeate throughout the organization that you care for people?
Well, I think, again, going back to love thy neighbor, and if our neighbors are those people that we interface with in our particular neighborhood, but also we spend more time with them in the workplace, then an employer then has the opportunity to say, how do I care for these people? How do I love on them?
Mm-hmm.
And we have been convinced in our culture today that you can't mix faith and work, right, as employers.
Right.
Right? We've been convinced that a separation of church and state. Well, that's not what it says in the first place. It says separation of church from the state, so that the state can't impose a particular religion on us. And so we know, for those of us who follow the Bible, that we have the Great Commission that says that we need to be helping others and need to be telling them about the gospel message for those of the Christian faith. And so I would say that if you happen to run a company and you're Jewish, then what is it that you believe, and how do you take care of people in a similar way? So I think that you just mentioned this wheel, and I'd love to introduce the concept of the wheel, and because it's a tool to say, what are the various elements of our lives, and what are the various aspects of our lives? And if I'm the owner of a company, then I want to reduce the stress of my employees. I want them to be able to get to work, and when they get to the workplace, that they have less stress rather than more.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding that we hear this term, work-life balance.
Oh, if you could see me now, I'm covering my ears. That is just a misnomer.
Yeah. So, in the fact that for those of us that have been in the workplace, professionally for me, 45 years, that as one of those baby boomers, then that has one connotation. And if you take my kids and now my grandkids, and you're down into, you got the Gen Xers and the millennials, and now a new generation. What does that mean? So I think that there's for the owners of the company, or a steward of the company, as I would say, that's one responsibility. But I think that I'd love to spend some time today in this podcast talking about, what does it mean to the woman who is listening, maybe sitting in her car on the way home from work and listening, as so many do, to you. And I would have to say, Doctor, this is not just a podcast for women. All right, I've been touched since I was introduced to your podcast. So I think it's a broader audience than you know. But that said, there's a woman sitting in her kitchen. Maybe she's that single mom who's struggling, and we talk about this work-life balance,
Right.
which is a misnomer, as you said.
Is.
But it is of interest. So there's an employer side to this. I'd love to leave that for a different conversation. But today, to talk about, in the time that remains, is, so what does that look like? And you mentioned a wheel that I gave you. Mm-hmm. Within the C12, we fill one out every month. And so they'll go around, and the members, and share, hey, here's my high point. Here's maybe one or two that I'd like you to pray over that are of concern. My mom's dying, or my husband just lost his job, or whatever that might be. Mm-hmm. So we have a wheel that has a dozen different areas, and so they fill it out. And then the first thing, what do they say when they do that?
I'm out of balance.
I'm out of balance. Doctor, my contention is that our lives are not meant to be in balance. I believe that we are one phone call away or one circumstance away from being out of balance. And I think that this came to me from the standpoint of a guy who, early on in my career, I was a 70, 80 hour a week guy. That's not, first of all, that's not godly.
I completely understand.
It's wrong.
Right. I completely understand it, though. We get so tied up in achieving organizational goals, achieving a certain lifestyle, having a certain bank account balance that we believe that is the drive without really realizing what we sacrifice by putting in those kind of hours. And it's the indicators that's right here on the wheel. For you can't see it, but my marriage, my family, my fun and recreation, fitness and nutrition, we're all guilty of neglecting those things by working those 80 hours or working, I travel a lot for work. So it might be 80 hours of engagement and another 10 hours of travel, or you never just know what the balance is or imbalance is until you realize, I think the very point that you're getting to is the alignment and being able to respond to what the matter at hand is at that time, the purpose that you're being guided or driven by.
Doctor, I was in transition, and I was becoming a C12 chair, and I have the opportunity, the privilege of walking alongside people and see them in the same struggle that I had faced years earlier. And I've been married, in fact, this week it'll be 44 years.
Congratulations.
And anyone who knows my wife would say it's all because of her and her loyalty. But as we look at this, I find that it's so easy to get my satisfaction out of my work. So I had to look at, why am I working 70 hours, 80 hours a week? What is it that we call it being a workaholic? But I loved it. So we make an excuse for that, don't we? We say, oh, I love my job and I have to provide for my family.
Right.
So let's set this up in a little bit different way.
Okay.
If you and I went online, and we can Google anything in today's world, right? And there we could put in a balanced wheel or a work-life balance wheel, and we could find a dozen different models. Some would talk about recreation, health. There are any number of ways to do it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The C12 group, we call our wheel the balance wheel. And when we fill it out, as you said earlier, the first thing is, my life is out of balance. So here's how I was reading a book about this whole concept, because it intrigued me, because I knew I was broken. And as I read it, I was finishing the last chapter, and I was in, of all places, a tire store. All right. This is proof of how God will use the Holy Spirit to work through situations and people. So I'm at the tire store, and I paid my whatever, $800, and the tires are now balanced, right? They put those little lead things, whatever, on the wheel, so they're now balanced. And then he says, after I've spent my $800, would you like to take advantage of one of our alignment programs?
Wow.
And I say, okay, describe this to me. Okay, well, you can just pass and not get the wheels aligned to your car, or we can align it to the car for a year at this price, or for life, the life of the car. And I said, well, what does that do? Well, every tire is balanced, but now it has to be aligned to your car. And if you hit a pothole, have you ever hit any potholes in life?
For sure.
Yeah. All right. And so if you hit a pothole, you can come back and get the car realigned to the tires. And that was it, Doctor. It struck me that's what this is supposed to be. We hit potholes all the time, in life, right? And that might be we get a phone call and one of our kids or our spouse is been taken to the hospital. They were in a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all of a sudden, my life is out of balance.
Right.
And I need to then ask the question, am I aligned with God's will for my life? In that circumstances, what comes first? So Scripture says that first is our relationship with God,
Mm-hmm.
then our relationship with our spouse, then our relationship with our kids,
Mm-hmm.
and then number 4 is work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was a great mystery to me because I had put work number 1 for many
Top
many
of the
times.
list.
It was it,
Mm-hmm.
and I had justified it in my own life. So that wheel, whatever wheel that people want to use, then the question is not are they in balance because of whatever that pothole is that you face.
Right.
It could be something as severe as a separation from your spouse.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to still be aligned with God's will for my life? How do I get this back on track?
Right.
Or I've lost my job. How am I going to handle this?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. And it brings to mind, I said I travel a lot. So I'm in rental cars a lot. And, these days, rental cars have so many digital features, So the other, last week, as a matter of fact, I was out in St. Louis and I had picked up a little rental car and I'm driving down the road. I am guilty of doing multiple things while driving, okay? But the example you just gave is perfect because it's balance and it's alignment. And as I balance trying to do these things in the car, and I'm in this 2019, I went out of alignment. And what happens? It goes, it shakes, it hits those little, I don't know what they call the little lines in the road now, but for some reason, the car can sense that I'm out of line. I have shifted from what I'm supposed to do. That's just like life. That's just like being out of purpose. That's like not being on your journey. And so you would think round wheels, I'm going to continue to propel forward, being in a driving momentum force, right? They're balanced. But it's not just the fact that you have the tools, it's how they all work together. Are those tires balanced and aligned with the Toyota? Are you driving Toyota tires on a Mercedes-Benz? What are we doing here? You're going to hit that. What is that little line called in the road? They have a fancy name for it now because it does have, you know what I mean? It's the side, the little line that
I came here with all sorts of information, and that is not one of them,
is
Doctor.
Not one of them.
That is it. Yeah.
Well, nonetheless, God will do the same thing for you. When you get out of alignment, He will rattle you. He will let you know that, you know what, you're coming off the road, but you have to be present. You have to have a sense of being able to hear and receive that.
Absolutely. And this tool of a wheel checked on a periodic basis, whether that's monthly, if that's quarterly. Yes. And when I fill out my wheel, the question then is, would my wife say that when I say that my marriage is a 9 on a 1 to 10 scale?
Right.
What would she say it is? When she says that I'm present with her, would she say that I am, or would she say, well, let's look at this. Mm-hmm. You're always playing with your cell phone when we're together. Mm-hmm. And so is that a 7 or is that a 9?
Yeah.
My nutrition, how is that? I would rate it this, but what would she say? Yeah. And again, this is a subjective tool, really, and I like to say that it's between you and God. What does God say? How are you doing? So I guess my thought today was to draw this distinction that says that the wheel, as we've been told, of work-life balance is not really about balance, but in alignment. Are we having a quiet time in the morning?
Mm-hmm.
Do we start our day with that quiet time and either a devotion, scripture, whatever is your morning routine to be connected with God for the day?
Right.
For there are those that are listening that don't come from a faith background. It was like, are you going to handle it today, or are you going to let God do it? And I
Right.
think too often I like to say, and that's why I love to look at my wheel and say that, hey, I've got this, God. I've got it today. I'm on top. I'm on top of my game. Maybe next week when I have that quarterly review with my boss, then I want you to be involved, or whatever that might be, that situation that you're facing. But so I think that creating a wheel, whatever is the wheel for you, is a great way on a periodic basis, weekly, monthly, quarterly, to look at that and reflect and say, how am I doing? Yes, I'm out of balance, but I'm in alignment with God.
I agree. And, the spiritual part of us is, in my opinion, is probably one of the strongest indicators of balance and alignment for me. There are other things that can be more outward, or people may notice or be able to critique you on more readily, like if your health is out of balance or your weight is out of balance or so forth, because all of those are indicators of, your relationships, in my opinion.
Well, that's a
But
perfect example. For months, I rated my weight. I was too high. I told my doctor, he said, how are you? I said, I am great. My body is my temple. And he said, well, your temple's about 20 pounds overweight. and so I came to that point to say, how long am I going to be a hypocrite and mark that on this wheel? And when am I going to take action?
Right.
And so at the beginning of the year, it wasn't a New Year's resolution. It was just, I'm going to take action on this. I'm going to do something about it. And so then I lost the 20 pounds that in January and February, just because I just realized that I was not in alignment with what God would want for my body. And again, it was as much physical as it was spiritual. It was really kind of a combination there with.
Yeah, it's all in mindset, I think, and that's another important thing that you mentioned. It's the small steps. It's I've heard people say, well, I've talked to God, or I hear from God, and I guess there are different stories or interpretations of it. But if you wait for God to come in a big booming baritone voice, you might be waiting a while. But he will speak to you in small whispers and in quiet spaces, and have you to take the small steps so that you can move forward and closer to him. We talk a lot on the show about the value of routines, morning routines, night routines, planning so that you can be consistent. I like to think that I'm in constant communication. Prayer is what I say to him, but I love to listen. And so I kind of I move in a meditative state. Somebody just told me yesterday, I think it was, that there is a world outside your mind. I don't know what that meant. I guess I do know what it means, but it's okay. I like to live in my little bubble sometimes because it is a protective insulation, if that's fair. I don't want to talk about me too much, but I don't want to get stuck on just the C12 wheel. But if you don't mind, I kind of want to rapid fire some topics that are that I think people have on their wheel, and just to see what advice you could give the listeners to help them get themselves in alignment and how they might think about going forth. So we talked about physical health and 20 pounds and taking those small steps. But family ties are the tightest relationships that we can have. I think you put it right there, number 3 in the list of biblical orders, that know how we live our life, and no matter how busy things we can get, how do you find the balance and the alignment for family time and to have a good relationship with your spouse and your kids and your extended family? How do you do that as a CEO or owner?
Well, I think that it goes back to what are your priorities?
Mm-hmm.
And if you say that your family, your spouse and your family is a priority, how do we judge that? Well,
Mm-hmm.
let's look at our calendar.
Mm-hmm.
How much time are you spending with them?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's just, a couple of hours each week with one of your kids, or are you coaching their baseball, softball team, their soccer team? Are you making that a priority? Do you have a date night with your wife? Maybe every week is not possible. All right. Well, what about every other week? What is it that this is going to be a specialized time between the two of you?
Right.
Same thing with your family. What is it that your kids like to do that you're willing to give them specialized time? One child loves the going to the Lightning hockey game. Another one likes something else.
Right.
You women love to have everything fair.
Right.
I've always believed I had three kids that are now adults, but when they were growing up, if I was traveling to a city that met one of their interests, then I'd bring back a gift. Now,
Right.
don't beat me up, ladies that are listening to this, because my wife did for all that 20 years that they were growing up. But I felt like they needed to learn that life is not fair. And oh, by the way, I was in Boston and you happen to be a Red Sox fan and a Patriots fan. I know that not a pleasant topic here. But for the other son was a Yankee fan. Okay, so and my daughter liked something
right.
different, right? And so so doing something that makes them realize that they are a priority. I think that that's what it's as simple as that. It's making breakfast for them
Yes.
on Saturday mornings or before church on Sunday, and
Yes.
and that becomes something that they think is special.
Right. I think it goes right into the next topic, which is social, and having people around you that you like and trust is also a great indicator of living a robust and happy life. Um, how do you have a robust network of friends when you're leading an organization? They say it's lonely at the top.
It-
What do you do, or how do you manage a career in an organization so that it's not so lonely at the top?
Yeah, and that is exactly why the C12 group was founded 26 years ago, because it is lonely at the top, and some people can rub shoulders with their with their management team.
Hmm.
Others feel like, oh no, I can't, and we can't be that close and friend. But being isolated can be a problem. So how do you do that? Is that with a group like the gardening group? For me, landscaping is that's my hobby. So if I can associate with a group of men and women that like to landscape and learn about plants that make it in Tampa Bay area, then that's an outlet for me. For some, it's going to a sporting event, and that becomes their network of friends. Or it
Right.
could be for those that like to go out, and I have next door neighbors who their thing is they go out every Saturday night with other friends, and they experience wine tasting. That's
Oh, nice.
that's their hobby. And so, what is it for you?
Yeah.
But again, I think the word that comes to mind here is intentionality.
Good word. Good word, Ross.
So intentionality in all areas of the wheel, however you have created it, is the way to make certain things a priority for you.
Yeah. That's so important too, because intentionality also makes me think of not being neglectful to yourself. Because when you're social or you're taking care of family, you're setting those priorities, you have to remember that you are a priority and that you should be a priority. And so landscaping, and like my husband, he loves doing the yard. He takes care of the yard. Believe it or not, I love pulling the weeds. And it's something therapeutic about me going and pulling the weeds after he has done the edging and the lawnmower. It's just like, oh, I just put a little touch on that. And so it's that one thing that if neglected, to me the yard just doesn't
It's
look nice.
incomplete.
It's
right?
incomplete.
And that isn't that what your podcasts are about?
Yes.
It's about pulling weeds.
It is.
It is. Oh, this week we're going to pull dandelions. Next week we're going to talk about whatever that is.
Yeah.
There are those weeds that invade our landscape.
Yeah.
So that's boy, we've taken advantage of that analogy. Wow.
It's just amazing. God is just so around you. You can see a lesson in almost everything. Be it a wheel on the road, a line on the road, a weed in the yard. He speaks to us. Just think about it. The word says that if he will take care of the lilies of the field, most definitely he'll take care of you and I, right? So
exactly, and I think that's why I wanted to talk about this whole area of being in alignment, because our Creator is a God of order.
Yes, he is.
And we messed it up in that Garden of Eden. Because all they had to say, Doctor, is what we get to say each and every moment, each and every day, which was when the serpent was saying, well, he didn't mean, that tree, right? All they had to say is what we get to say. And that is, God, what say you? That's all. We're not blaming this on Eve. We're not blaming, it was an Adam and Eve. All they had to say was, what say you?
What say you?
That garden was pretty big. That garden was the size of the state of Delaware, based on the description in Genesis. So, if that's how big it was, then they had a lot of territory and a lot of trees that they could pull from, except that one tree.
Wow.
Yeah. So, what say you, God? That's really what that's what this is about, and why I like to suggest that we fill out that wheel, always asking, are we in alignment with God?
Yeah. That's beautiful. So, Ross, I want to ask you just a couple more questions, and I'd like for you to close with a quote, if you happen to have a favorite quote that you could.
Oh, this is a setup, is it?
You could leave us with. So, as a businessman and a business leader and a coach, how do you measure business success as it aligns with the word, as it aligns with a purpose, anybody's purpose? But help my listeners really think about how to measure success in the way that they believe success to be.
So if we looked at Galatians 5, right, everybody's going to go, oh, he's going to go to those fruits of the Spirit. Mm-hmm. Well, the fruits are the outcome that we had in mind with our intentionality and our priorities. And so if, in fact, we want to have a life of fulfillment, then God has said, right, love, joy, peace, right, patience. And so he gave us those 6 to say, these are the fruits if you are walking with me. Because earlier it says in Galatians that you either are living in the flesh or living in the Spirit. They're opposed. They are opponents of each other.
Right.
And so the question is, if we want to have this great joy in our lives, and you mentioned it early on, is we want achievement and we want joy, which is not the same as happiness.
No, it's not.
And so if we want to enjoy those fruits of the Spirit, then what are the seeds that we need to plant? And are we pruning the trees? That's another, are we pruning those things out of our lives that we don't want? Mm-hmm. The 70-hour weeks. When I moved to Florida, it was like, no, I'm going to change. Yeah. I have to. And because I owe it to my wife and our marriage to do that. And so that those workaholic behaviors that gave me some kind of a satisfaction and measurement of success, I needed to change that.
Yeah.
So I think that let's close with this. When I left my first career after 33 years and I was creating a resume, the woman who I went to had written books on resume writing. And she said, "Do you have a favorite quote?" And I said, "Not really." And she said, "Well, if you'd look one up, and then I like to put it on the top of the resume." And I stopped at a little diner on the way home, and I took out a napkin, and I wrote these words: "God has a purpose for my life that is so compelling, I must pursue it with passion."
Amen.
It just came out. It was, for me, I say it was a gift from the Holy Spirit. I've never forgotten it. And that was almost, it goes back to 2008. And so it was just words that God gave me to say, this is your call as you move forward. Ultimately, I became the executive pastor of that church in Colorado Springs. And then ultimately, I just felt like God was saying, it's time to do something different, and I'm going to move you to Tampa Bay. And I knew no one and had no idea about the C12 group. It all came about because God had a purpose that he wanted me to pursue with passion.
Ah, that's beautiful. That is such a wonderful place to close on. Ross, I thank you so much for being here and helping us remember that God has a purpose for each of us. A favorite scripture that we share here often is Jeremiah 29:11, and we all love it, that he does have a purpose for us, a plan to build us up for hope and not for harm. And so I love that. And so if you didn't get anything else today, guys, I want you to remember that God has a plan for you and that there is no such thing as balance. There's no such thing as work-life balance. Your goal is to be in alignment with the purpose that God has defined in your life and in your heart. So take the time to make your no a no and your yes a yes, and do it in faith. Until next time, peace, love, and happiness. As always, it's your girl, Dr. Swag.
Glad you joined our conversation. For more Swag University episodes, subscribe on iTunes and help us level up by leaving a 5-star review. For more information and free resources, visit our website at swaguniversity.com with 2 G's. That's SWAGG University.com. Also, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to keep the conversation going. Until next time, we hope this episode has inspired you to manifest your destiny and level up today.